live on Facebook. Oh, this is live?
Ostensibly.
I wasn't informed.
Oh, my Lord. I'm very
This
sorry.
Is like that, what was that? My favorite year when...
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, who...
I
Peter...
always thought that you were the Peter O'Toole of character actors.
Peter O'Toole is going to be live? What? That was so funny.
I figured we'd go for broke, if that's all right.
No, sure, absolutely. I'm ready.
Excellent. Well, it was fun chatting with you virtually on Twitter over the whole your Knight Rider appearance.
Oh my God. I mean, I couldn't even remember that. And then it's so weird to be now, I'm 66 years old. And I started relatively, I was probably 34 years old there. It wasn't like I was 20.
Yeah.
But to me, that's just a whole different, to see myself on Knight Rider in whenever that was, 1980 something, it's a different person. I'm not even looking at myself. It's very strange.
The resemblance is still uncanny.
Well, let me get my hairpiece on.
Well, I guess for people who have not possibly read the random roles, I'll ask the obligatory origin story question. How did you actually get into acting in the first place? What led you down that path?
I was in college. I was at Berkeley studying English because that was still a good major then in 1972. And she was taking an acting class. And I thought, okay, I'll go into this acting class. And I went in, and we ended up being actually together for several years. But my love for her greater than my love for her. And when I left school,
whoops, I think I may have lost you here. Hold on one second. You got. Well, yes, I have lost Kurt Fuller. Well, I guess the big question will be whether or not he returns. Actually, the bigger question will be if he realizes that he's not actually on the call anymore.
looking at my Wi-Fi, I have all bars.
Okay, well now I see your name, and I just heard you, but I don't actually see you.
Hello?
Yes, there you go.
Now, have you done this kind of meeting before?
Yeah, I did it with Jim Beaver, actually.
Is it anything I'm doing? I mean, I've got all bars and everything, so I don't...
It may just be the general reception from either Facebook or Zoom. It's hard to say for sure.
Okay, all right.
But, I mean, it's not the first time it's happened, and I'm sure, for better or worse, it will not be the last time either.
All right, I'm fine with it. I mean, we look like amateurs, but it's okay.
Well, I acknowledged just a second ago that we may or may not have still been on the air. So let me, I think we're back now, though.
Okay. Where was I? Or are we starting all over again?
You were saying that you it just barely gotten started with the origin story, and then suddenly you were gone.
Oh, well, I met a girl. She was taking an acting class.
Yeah.
Did you get that part?
I heard you say that you liked her more than she.
No, my love for her was not as strong as my love for for acting. Then I graduated in 1976.
Yeah.
And came to LA. Everything I owned was in the back seat of my 1967 Dodge Dart. And got a job as a teller at a bank and just started doing theater. And I did theater for the 9 happiest years of my show business life. Much happier and more satisfying than, I'm one of those guys who never stops working.
Yeah.
And yet I was much happier when I was just doing theater for nothing. It was so much more, I don't know, it was purer.
I've heard that from many people too, though. I've heard that from many people.
Have you? Well, Here I am. So we're not lying. As long as somebody else said it.
We've discussed Knight Rider, but what are some of the other one-offs that you did that made an impression on you back then?
Father Dowling.
Oh, yeah.
I did a Father Dowling's Mysteries. I did Murder, She Wrote.
Nice. I
played the sheriff of somewhere. I was a sheriff.
Okay.
What other one-offs? Oh, I did Diagnosis Murder.
Oh, yeah. So all the anthologies you hit.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That's about. Those are the ones that are memorable, and then it just becomes sort of a. I mean, I haven't gone that far down my IMDb page in a long time. But then I got. See, what happened was in 1989. Was it? I got Ghostbusters II, something like that. And everything changed.
It was
and everything got a little. There weren't so many one-offs, and but up until then, I did everything that was not great. I never did a Friends. I never did any of the good shows, the really good shows. I did. Starred Charo. I swear to God, it starred Charo and the Beverly. Oh, I did Beverly Hills Bunts.
Oh, that's right. I did see that on there. Yeah.
Beverly Hills Bunts. That was a good one. And the Tortellis. I did the Tortellis, which was a spinoff from Cheers. Didn't do Cheers. I did the spinoff from Cheers. The Tortellis with Charo and I forget who else. But
Gene Kasem and Dan Hedaya, I guess were.
That's right. Yeah. You're right. Jesus, you're cheating. You've got to be cheating.
I swear to God, that one I didn't cheat on. I actually, for God help me, I knew that off the top of my head.
Okay. Wow. Unbelievable.
There was a series S4 that you did several episodes of called Wild Side.
Oh, yes. Wild Side was one of my first jobs.
Yeah.
And that was sort of an A-team, a Western A-team for Disney. And it's where I met and actually became very good friends with Meg Ryan. She was on that, and I played a reporter, and she was the editor of the newspaper, and was just starting her career really, and she got Top Gun right after that, as a matter of fact. And she was just a delightful person, and we actually were friends for. We've lost touch. We lost touch about 10 years ago, but we were friends for a long time, and that was when I would get notes from the director. Like, in fact, Ivan Reitman gave me this direction once on Ghostbusters II. I was such a horrible overactor from doing just college theater that he would say, "Do less than you ever thought it was possible to do." And that was humiliating. But I used to get that note a lot. And those are the days I was just petrified. I was petrified every day, waiting to get fired, didn't know what I was doing, in over my head, and somehow here I am.
When we were working on those one-offs like Father Dowling and Diagnosis Murder, did you have enough of a time with the leads to learn anything from them specifically?
Yeah, the one thing I did the Newhart show, for example. That was, and the leads. I remember I used to think that acting, you had to do so much, you had to act. And they always, I used to think when I was doing it, oh boy, these people, I don't know what they must do. They're terrible. They're just terrible. They're just not doing anything. They're just talking. They're not livening things up like I am. And then I would watch it and I would go, oh my God, they look so good. They're so good. I'm so bad. And I really don't, in those early years, know why I kept getting hired, except that I must have been lucky enough to be a great type, a great bad guy, a great sort of funny asshole type.
The world needs funny assholes.
The world needs funny assholes. Well, it needs a couple less than we have now, but it does need funny assholes. And I think that got me through the bad performances, actually.
Okay.
Because you really, TV really does hire by type more than it hires by talent.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I learned, was how little you can do and how relaxed you can be and should be. Like I am right now. See, it only took 35 years.
And you've mastered it. Well, I've got several people who've been throwing out roles for me to ask you about. But since you brought it up just a second ago, I'll ask about the Ghostbusters II experience.
The Ghostbusters II experience, I was selling real estate. I was doing a play called Kvetch that was written by Steven Berkoff. You probably know who Steven Berkoff is. He was the bad guy in Beverly Hills Cop.
Victor yes, absolutely, Victor Maitland.
He's a big writer in England. Okay. And this was he turned into, it changed my life because it turned into a hit in LA, and Harold Ramis, God rest his soul, came to see it 3 times and recommended me to Ivan Reitman. And I went in and I read, and I went back and sold real estate, and I got a call to be in New York. They were going to fly me to New York. It was like one of those overnight things. It was my 9th year of being in LA. Selling real estate and doing theater. Yeah. And I showed up, and the first scene was a scene at the public. It was one of the last scenes in the movie. And I was told by one of the producers, okay, you're going to do this. You're going to work with Bill Murray, who was a god to me, because this was Ghostbusters 2. Yeah. And he goes, and if it goes well, you'll stay. If it doesn't go well, you're going to go back home. You want to talk about pressure. And it went okay. Not great, but it went okay. And then all the Ghostbusters invited me out to lunch. And I was starstruck, completely awestruck. I went and had lunch with them, and they were like drinking wine. I was thinking, oh, they're drinking wine, and then they have to go work. How can they drink and work? And everything was just so new. It was just a completely overwhelming experience, and one of the best experiences of my life.
Well, you definitely made an impression from the get-go, as you say. I guess the funny asshole, you had it nailed from the.
Talk about. There was. At least I got the asshole part down very, very well.
So how about the experience of working with Hulk Hogan on No Holds Barred?
Okay. All right. There are some things that just don't go away. There's some, there are some people who love No Holds Barred. They grew up with it. They loved wrestling, and they grew up watching that movie. It is definitely a movie for kids. And that was one where I even knew I was being too big. I mean, I was like yelling, and Vince McMahon kept saying, more. And I went up to the director. I said, I feel like I'm just so overdoing this. And the director looked at me. He said, Kurt, you're working with a guy who's 6'6" wearing red spandex. You can't be too big. And because Hulk was, it was his first acting experience. There is a scene where I offer him a bribe, and I offer him a check, and he sticks the check down my throat, and then he goes, I won't be around when this check clears, which means comes out the other side. That's the joke.
Sure.
But because nobody talked to him, no stunt person was there, he thought he was supposed to really shove the check down my throat. And he actually did, and I actually swallowed it. Because I stopped. I said, wait, stop. He goes, man, I'm sorry. I thought I was really supposed to do it. And it was like, no, I'm not supposed to really eat a check. We might do this 10 times. And I would be eating 10 checks. But he was, what really surprised me about Hulk, not that he was a great actor, but he was a great businessman. It was all about business. Wrestling was just a business. And all those guys, he felt that was when WrestleMania, he sold out the Pontiac Silverdome for WrestleMania. He was big. And he said, I've got all my money with Donald Trump. And I wonder if he has any of that money left. Because
statistically speaking, I'd have to say no.
Yeah, I would have to say no. If he was investing in Atlantic City casinos, I would say no. But again, that was in Atlanta, Georgia. I had to wear suits all day. It was in the summer, about 90 degrees with 100% humidity. Just people followed me around with sponges and just mopped me down all the time. It was really, it was like walking through Jell-O. And I had never been anywhere. So all these experiences were so new. I know I look sophisticated and worldly and like nothing big. I know that. I know I'm like royalty. But I was fell off the turnip truck in terms of show business, these early jobs. I was just wide-eyed and looking around and soaking it all in. And I couldn't believe how much money they spent. I couldn't believe how much money they spent. It just blew my mind.
Were you one of the guys who was in awe of the craft services the first time you saw it?
Absolutely. In awe. They actually had food there for us. Jesus. Fantastic. Yeah.
Let's see. I was going to ask about just, again, kind of a one-off, but because of the show, you did an episode of the Van Dyke Show.
Oh, the sitcom.
Yeah.
Yes. I did do it with Dick and Barry Van Dyke.
Yeah.
Yes.
Short-lived, I know, but.
Short-lived. And I have to say, because I also did a Diagnosis Murder.
Right. Yeah.
Dick Van Dyke is one of the nicest people I've ever met in show business.
Yeah.
And just delightful. And the audition room, when you walk into an audition room, if you ever want to realize how not special you are, go into an audition room where you'll see 20 other people just like you. And if you're a supermodel, you'll go into an audition room and see, and I've been there, 20 other supermodels, each one just as beautiful as you are, because everybody who was the prettiest person in their town, or the best looking person, or the most talented person, they're all in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And they all show up at the same time. And it's just really it's why people leave, because you go and any person can do the role, any person who's in there. But in that room, which is usually pretty tense, Dick Van Dyke walked in and sat down and started talking to us all. That has never happened before, never happened since. To have a guy who just is an actor and friendly, and he'd do his Stan Laurel imitation, and he was doing little dances, and he was just great. And then when we worked, he was just fantastic. I loved doing that show.
I will say my only Dick Van Dyke story is that my very first time out at the Television Critics Press Tour, I walked into the Hilton, and I was just never been to anything like it before. And the first person I see actually is Anthony Stewart Head from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Giles. And I was just so excited. And I got a picture of him, not even with him. Didn't even occur to me to take a picture with him.
Right.
And then I get on the phone and I call my wife. I was like, "You're not going to believe this. I just saw Giles." And as I'm telling her that, I realize I'm walking directly behind Dick Van Dyke.
Jesus.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, I've really got to step up my game about when it comes to being around famous people.
Yep. Yeah, I know. It's true, because when it first starts out, it's just awe-inspiring and intimidating, and you just hope that you don't make an idiot out of yourself.
Yeah. The quicker you learn in my business and yours that they're just the same as you,
Oh,
better off you are.
I know a lot of very, very successful, unhappy people.
Well, let's see. I was going to ask about the experience of doing Capital News, because that was groundbreaking for your character there.
Yeah, Capital News. Boy, that's the one that got away. Capital News was created by David Milch and Christian Williamson. It was, basically about the Washington Post, and I think the problem with it was newspaper work is sort of just a bunch of people with typewriters, and the stories, and how do you make that exciting every week? It was hard. But I played this gossip columnist named Miles Plato, and I got such incredible reviews. It was my first series. I got these great reviews because David Milch wrote this great character.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know who David Milch is, look it up. You'll be impressed.
You'll be shocked that you didn't know who he was.
Huh?
And then you'll be shocked that you didn't know who he was.
Yes. And I think the review in the show, I still remember it. This is how sick I am. But the review in the Chicago Sun-Times at the time went, Capital News makes Kurt Fuller a star. That's the kind of, it was gone in 4 episodes.
Well,
canceled. And I thought, wow, this TV is easy. And, I've never gotten reviews like that again. Really, or, I'm just always just there. I'm there doing my thing. But to me, that was the one. And that was like my first series. It got away. If it had gone, things would be, although things have been great, they would have been different, I think.
Yeah.
But everybody can say that about everything.
Well, what was Milch like? I've heard he's kind of a enigmatic but
I stayed friends with Milch for many years. He's a bit in decline now. He has dementia.
Yeah, I've heard.
And well publicized. It's not a secret. But it's ironic. It's sort of like seeing Muhammad Ali with Parkinson's, a god, the best of the best at his best, becoming something totally antithetical to who he really is. The smartest, most unique, just odd, but brilliant person you would ever want to meet. Compulsive gambler, would bet all the time, had a bookie come to the set, would, right before you do a scene, send down a monologue for you that was 4 pages long and have you memorize it in 10 minutes and do it. And at the time, I was like, whatever, I guess this is how it is. It was not how it was. But also just another guy with a huge heart. Just a complicated, one of these, like a Picasso, so artistically evolved, but personally a bit of a, not as together personally as he was artistically.
Yeah.
But a huge heart, which I don't know if you can say that about Picasso. But Milch had a huge heart. He has nothing but good intentions.
Okay. Let's see. I wanted to ask about, because of the makeup alone, the experience doing Miracle Mile, since they finally got that released on Blu-ray.
Yeah, they did. They did release Miracle Mile. Was one of those movies. It was made for, and I'm still in touch with the director, Steve DeJarnett. It was made for $4 million. And it kind of, we had to, like, they were like, it was like how people now take out their iPhones and go steal shots and go do that, you know. Well, in those days, it wasn't that. You had a big goddamn camera and you had to get permits and they were supposed to block off the street. But for Miracle Mile, I didn't know it at the time. They were just sneaking around and grabbing shots. And then sometimes they would get a permit and sometimes they wouldn't. And it was sort of guerrilla filmmaking of the type that most people would do now. But at the time, it was, you know, I didn't realize it, but we could have gotten, you know, shut down or arrested at any moment. And the way I get nuked, and the way they nuked me was they put up, I was at the, like, there's a skyscraper on Miracle Mile. I was at the top of it with my shirt off. And they put a big, like two 10Ks, and 10Ks are huge, like Klieg lights that, you know, will light up the whole world. Directly at my face. And then they seriously cracked 2 eggs and put one, can you see that? They put one in each palm. And I sat like this. And then when the lights went on, I went, and then it looked like my eyes were melting through my fingers, but they were actually 2 eggs that I had just smashed into my open eyes because I, you know, wanted it to be good. And I had egg yolk in my eyes. You know, it dried. It was crusty on my eyebrows. It was, you know, but that's all that was. There was no huge, there was no such thing as CGI. There was no huge special effect. It was 2 eggs.
Something to be said for practical effects, though.
Yes, there is.
Well, I want to ask you about the pilot episode of News Radio, the broken down boss on his way out.
Oh my God. I was so, number one, I got to meet Phil Hartman, who was an idol of mine. And for those of you who don't know who Phil Hartman was, he was on Saturday Night Live for many years and then was murdered by his wife. You know,
I'm still not over it, frankly.
I'm not either. It was crazy. And he was a genius.
Yeah.
And I played the boss that the new guy has to come in and fire. And they were so nice to me. I thought, wow, maybe they'll keep me. Maybe I'll hang around. I was having so much fun. And, you know, it was Jim Burrows, who's, he was the guy who directed Cheers and one of the producers of Cheers. But no, I was fired. They let me go. But that was a really, that show I remember because I got to talk to Phil Hartman. And that was like a bucket list thing for me. Because I've always worshipped him.
Yeah. What is your favorite pilot you've done that didn't get picked up?
Favorite pilot I've done that didn't get picked up. I've done some bad ones.
Feel free to call those out too, but I wasn't going that way.
Boy, you know, I don't have one. I'll be honest with you. I don't have one. I'm thinking of them all, and I never thought any of the pilots I never thought they were going to get picked up. You know, most of them are not great. Sorry. You know, they're you know, shows usually become great, you know, by the end of the first season, if they're going to be great. Everybody sort of, you know, doesn't know what they're doing. I may think of it later because I've done like 30 pilots. So, and I've done 8 series. So it's, one may come to me, but nothing pops to my mind.
Fair enough. Well, as long as we're talking about first seasons, though, Evil really was firing all the thrusters right out of the gate, it feels like.
Well, yeah, because Evil, Thursday nights on CBS, 10 o'clock, even this coming fall season, if somehow we go back to work in New York.
Yeah, fun.
Which is, slightly intimidating, but I don't think we would go back to work unless the conditions were optimum. But we're going to go back to work. There's no doubt in my mind. They're getting ready right now.
Yeah.
But it was written by Robert and Michelle King, who created The Good Wife and Do the Good Fight. They are doing for network television, I think, the best, most highest quality network television there is.
Certainly previous, that's for sure.
Yeah. And Evil, again, got tremendous reviews and is a really interesting show. Really interesting. And I'm so happy to be going back to do it. I'm at the age where, they put you out to pasture, and I'm still doing it. And show business, as they say, you can't make a living, but you can make a fortune. And the only time you make a fortune is when you're doing a series. So you make a fortune and you put it in the bank. And, that's what I've always done. So anytime I'm on a series, I can't complain, because those are the times that, for all the years that you sort of pay all your bills back.
Sure, yeah. And did you know how your character was going to evolve at all when you first signed on?
No.
Okay.
No, I did it as a guest star.
Yeah.
But I think it was always their plan. A lot of times with networks, if you tell them at the beginning, the Kings, I've known them forever, and we've always wanted to do a series together. And I did a bunch of
Good Wife,
good wives, and Good Fights.
Yeah.
And they were, our kids, our daughters grew up together. So I know them here in LA. If you go to CBS and say, this is going to be a regular, they're going to go, get a star, get a name. So I think they just hired me as a guest star, always intending to make me a regular. But after the pilot and after it got picked up, they said, oh, by the way, we want to make this a regular. And they couldn't say, the character kind of worked, and the network said, okay, sure. And if they had said that before the pilot, I think I wouldn't have been, they wouldn't have been allowed to hire me.
Yeah.
It's very kind of political. And I understand next year there's going to be quite a bit more, because the lead, Katja Herbers, who is a wonderful actress, is going to get really screwed up.
Yikes.
And she's going to need a therapist.
There you go.
But that's where I come in.
Exactly. Oh, I had one of my Facebook friends want me to ask you specifically about being part of Laurie Hill.
Wow! What the hell? Laurie Hill.
Yeah.
That was a good show, and that was created by the people who created The Wonder Years and Growing Pains, and they discovered Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah.
Ellen DeGeneres was her first TV job. We were doctors, and she played not a nurse, maybe the office manager on Laurie Hill.
Right.
And it was before she had come out. She was sort of, we knew, but the world didn't know. And she was immediately a standout. Talk about, she had a small role. So it's a show about a doctor's office, basically, and the home life of an actress, there was an actress, Delane Matthews, her sort of balancing being a doctor and being a wife and a mother. And very well written. Those guys are really good writers, again. And And here's Ellen. She had a couple lines here and there, but she just popped. You just wanted, she was compelling. You wanted to see her. It made me so jealous. It's that, that thing that you can't learn, you can't create, you can't fake, that charisma, likability. She just has it. And, I don't. I mean, I'm not saying that bitterly. I just don't. And, I have other things that I use, but I don't have what she had. And it doesn't surprise me at all what has happened with her. I mean, she just had it. She just had this thing, this ease about her that was so compelling.
Yeah. It paid off for her.
And one of the first vegetarians I ever met.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Big animal rights even at the time. It was a long time ago.
Let's see. I want to ask about autofocus.
Well, autofocus, I think is slightly underappreciated. I think because it's if anybody who has watched Hogan's Heroes, some of you have, some of you hadn't, but it was a sitcom about a German concentration camp not a concentration camp, a prisoner of war camp during World War II, with that funny comedy Hitler and, all his cronies. But it somehow worked because they made the Nazis buffoons. Yeah. And so it was okay to laugh at it. I don't think it could be made today, but it certainly could be made then.
Yeah.
And the head of Bob Crane played sort of the star. And it's kind of a dark story because Bob Crane, was a bit of he was a highly sexualized person. Let's put it that way. And it was the beginning of the video camera. So he would, autofocus is of course a video term. There was a lot of film that is not Hogan's Heroes with Bob Crane, not wearing clothes with various people. And Greg Kinnear plays him in the movie, and I played Colonel Klink, who used to go, Hogan, to the cooler.
Nailed it.
Well, I did nail it, and I did nail Colonel Klink, I have to say. And believe me, I don't think I'm that good. I'm not. I'm always staggering around trying to figure things out. But I did sort of nail Colonel Klink, and it was directed by one of the greatest writers ever, Paul Schrader, who wrote Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. I mean, just some brilliant movies. Yeah. And so I got to work with him, and I got to work with Greg Kinnear and Willem Dafoe. And I got to play Colonel Klink, and I got to play him as the character and as the real person. And I really enjoyed it. I really did. I really would work so hard because there's a bunch of, we would do scenes from the show, and the scenes are there, and we would, me and Kinnear and I would go into his trailer, which was larger than mine, and watch the scene, then go right onto the set and do it, because you could compare it. And I have to say, good job.
I think it's fair.
Good job. Okay.
How did you enjoy the experience of doing Pursuit of Happiness?
Pursuit of Happiness. Here's the interesting thing with the Pursuit of Happiness. The director, Pursuit of Happiness is a good movie, and I got to spend 3 months in San Francisco, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
The director spoke maybe 2 words of English. He's Italian. And I swear to God, he would do stuff like, instead of saying, walk a little straighter, he'd go, you're walking like this. You're walking like this. You gotta do this. And I would just say, no matter what he said, I go, okay. And I never once said, what are you saying? I just would go, okay. And I just do it again. I never understood one word he said to me the whole time. And neither did Will Smith. And, but, you know, it was fine. He would just go, you know, and speak Italian. And he was very emotional. And his wife would be there. And I think they were very much in love, but they would just scream at each other. In Italian, they would have these fights. And then he would just turn around and start directing. I don't think they were actually having a fight. I think they were just passionate Italian, soulful. But it was really just fascinating to be there. There's always something going on. And but the experience was good, and Will Smith was great.
Excellent.
Good man, good to work with. It's fun.
And when it comes to doing roles like that, like the smaller parts,
right?
Does the amount of preparation that you put into it depend on how big the part is, or how long you're going to be on the set, or?
Well, it was one of those movies where I had to be there because they didn't know when they were going to get certain sets, like we had to shoot at the mayor's office. So I only worked about 6 days, but I was there for 3 months. I had a lot of time off. So there's not as much preparation.
Sure.
He was a real person, but there was no background on him. There was no one, you know. It was actually no preparation. So yes, there was no preparation. I showed up and did it. But you know, it was sort of a guy, you know, I sort of played, you know, he was a nice guy, businessman, and that's pretty easy for me to play.
Do you tend to do more work when it comes to playing real people, or do you?
Oh my God, I have to. Yes, okay. Playing real people is a huge responsibility, to do, because you can't imitate them. You can't. It's not a mimic. You've got to play a version of that person who is also you.
Yeah.
To make it a human being. In other words, you can't just, you know, try and copy a person. You have to get, I know this is sounding actory, but you have to figure out what makes that person tick and play that. And don't try and be the person. Right. You get the essence of the person and then invest yourself in it. Otherwise, you're dead. It's boring and two-dimensional. So there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into it, yes. Like I got Werner Klemperer as Hogan's Heroes when I realized that in the show, his father was Otto Klemperer, who was a famous composer, very famous composer in the 20s and 30s. And Werner was very musical, and he actually sung his lines. He would do it, and you do that, Hilda, and so when I realized that he sung his lines, I played him like he was in an opera, and that was my hook into it.
Yeah, I never even thought about that, with the actually was singing them, but that makes sense.
Wow. Yeah, well, I didn't sing them, but you know what I'm saying. Come on,
I do, absolutely, yeah.
So that was that.
Okay. I was going to ask about the experience of Midnight in Paris, because I know when it comes to Woody Allen, there aren't really auditions per se, or at least that's what I've heard.
Oh, I was at the driving range hitting golf balls, and my agent called me and said, "You're getting an offer from Woody Allen for a movie." Never met him, never auditioned for him before. I had no idea. And I honestly said to him, check. They might mean Kurt Russell. Check. And I went back to hitting balls, sure that it was a mistake. And he goes, nope, it's you. And I said, what? What? And this was when Woody Allen was Woody Allen, you know? And I was told that someone would arrive at my door. They would give me an envelope. I would open up the envelope, read the contents, and then give the envelope back to the person. Now, this is the truth. I'm not going to exaggerate anything. So I'm told when I open the door, kid, you know, standing there, gives me an envelope. He goes, I'll wait out here. I open the envelope. Hold on. And there is, I don't know if you can read this. Can you read this?
I can see it.
Okay. It's this. It's a note. Okay.
Okay.
And it says, March 18th, 2010. Kurt, read Inez's father. She's Rachel McAdams. We all thought you'd have fun with it. If you agree, great. If you hate it, maybe something else one day down the line. Thanks for reading it. Best, Woody.
That's awesome.
Right? That is in my office. I'm in my office right now. That is, you know, you don't throw that away.
No.
Now you do, but you didn't then.
Most
And no. He was delightful at the time. I mean, just completely. I mean, everything you've heard about him, the shyness, the awkwardness, it's all true. It's all true. But then I open up and there's a script is like this thick, okay?
Yeah.
I had this, okay, which was all the pages that were my role, okay?
Yeah.
Everything else is redacted, blacked out. The other characters' names are blacked out. Stage directions are blacked out. Huge sections are blacked out. Only the words I spoke and who spoke to me, okay?
Yeah.
So I read it, and I could make no sense of it, all right? But, of course, I wrote back, I love it! Are you kidding me? This is fantastic. Oh, my God. But in effect, I had read, I couldn't make sense of anything. It certainly wasn't the script. I never got the script. And the days that you worked, everybody got they have what's called sides, which is the work you're doing that day. So, you know, everybody got different ones with everything blacked out except their lines and the lines that are said to them. I never knew there was a part of the movie that took place in the past. I never knew when I showed up the first day, because there was no script, and we're having a meal. It was a meal with me and Owen Wilson and my wife and Rachel McAdams.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I like the guy or don't like the guy. I don't know what I'm supposed to think about him. I have no idea what the hell's going on. I'm just having dinner. I don't know that he's her girl or boyfriend. I don't know anything. So I just figured, I don't like that. I don't like this guy. I just figured, and I guessed right. But otherwise, I mean, honestly, it was a complete guess. And, but it turned out to be, I mean, come on. 2 months in Paris on somebody else's dime. You only work 10 hours a day, which seems like a lot, but in show business hours, that's nothing.
Yeah. And,
you know, staying in a great place and doing a Woody Allen movie that turns out to be really successful. That was good for 2010.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. But the audition thing, there was no audition. I still think he made a mistake. I think if he, during the entire movie off the set, he must have passed me 4 or 5 times. He had no idea who I was. I really believe that. He passed me like I was a stranger. But on the set, hey, how are you? Hey, I saw your stuff last night. It was good. But off the set, I don't think he knew who I was.
In the context, though. In the right context, you were perfect for the part.
Exactly.
All right, well, we should definitely talk Psych, especially with the new movie coming up.
Oh, my God. Finally. I have not seen the movie. It's July 25th. But I did say at the winter TCAs, they asked me about it. And they said, are you in the movie? I said, I'm all over that movie like sticky on rice. And I am in it, but I'm not all over it. But I have heard Maggie Lawson has seen it. And of course, James and Goulet have seen it, and Tim Amundsen has seen it. Everybody but me seen it. I don't know. I was in New York. But they say it's really funny, and funnier than the first one. And I believe it, because the first movie had to be changed at the last minute because Tim had a stroke.
Right, yeah.
Tim Amundsen had a stroke, but it had to be completely, I mean, it was like, they wrote that script in a week. This was a real process, and it's got some great surprises, and I'm very anxious to see it. But I had a lot of fun. I think my character is slightly racist.
Oh.
I'm a little worried about it. I play a Cuban. Let me put it this way: I shamelessly overplay a Cuban. Okay.
So you still got the touch.
I still got the touch, but it may be quite insulting to anybody who's actually from Cuba. The only thing I can say in my defense is it's not me, it's Woody. It's the character. And it's exactly what he would do. So I had to do it because he could do nothing more or less.
Well, it was great getting to talk to Tim the other day and just discuss the film with him.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did random rolls with him, actually. So,
good.
Yeah.
He's doing pretty well. He's, I'm sure you had a fine conversation with him, and he was...
It was probably at least an hour, I think. It was a nice long...
When we did this movie, he was just starting to get his sea legs back, and it was he's come a long way since even the movie.
Yeah,
I'm sure he wishes he could redo his scenes now, but
probably.
Hey man, he's God bless him, man. He is. I think what's happened to him has actually made him a better person. He's so loving, and his view on life is so evolved. He's so grateful just to be alive that it's kind of great.
And I hear it was pretty nice to begin with. So
he was great to begin with. No. It only made a good person better,
Not an Ebenezer Scrooge type situation.
No. No.
Well, let's see. I had my obligatory question. If your favorite project you've worked on that didn't get the love that you thought it deserved.
Favorite project I worked on that didn't get the love. I thought, well, I already said autofocus.
Right, yeah.
Is there a series I thought didn't get the love I thought it deserved? They've all sort of... Yes.
Okay.
I did a series. There was a series in England that James Corden, who is now the late night show James Corden, wonderful actor, super talented guy. I mean, you don't know how talented he is. There was a show in England called Gavin and Stacey.
Oh, yeah.
I did the American version of Gavin and Stacey for Fox. It was called Us and Them.
Yes.
For the BBC and maybe Sony, I think, a co-production.
It is.
And Fox pulled the plug on it. They were going through a change of leadership, as studios often do. Yeah. They didn't understand it. And it was a really good show. It starred Jason Ritter.
Yes.
And now my age is showing.
From Gilmore Girls, I'm just blanking on her name right this second.
Gilmore Girls, but the wonderful, we'll think of it. And Jane Kasmerick and I were husband and wife.
Yes.
And his father. And I saw something recently, an article that was written about it, because it's showing, I think, in New Zealand or something. called "The Best Series You've Never Seen," and I think it is. It was really good. It was really good, and for the time, edgy and interesting. And Gavin and Stacey was great. This was good. Gavin and Stacey was great.
Oh yeah.
Sort of like me personally, I think of the British Office was great. The American Office was good.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that.
Alexis Bledel was her name.
Alexis Bledel, yes.
And I don't know if it still is, but it was actually the reason I knew it was a Sony co-production immediately is because it was on Crackle. I don't know if it still is, but it was.
Oh yeah, is the whole thing on Crackle?
I think so.
Okay.
Us and Them.
I thought just the pilot was on Crackle, but
I think the whole. I know it's more than one episode.
Well, I would say
I watched a couple.
Go see it, and then tell me if I'm a liar. You know, I thought it was really good.
I'm going to pull one more from random to wrap us up here because I told you I would keep you to an hour, and I'm going to hold to that. But,
yeah, I'm losing my voice because
no
I'm
problem.
so used to talking.
Let's see. Let's go with. That's a lot of pressure here.
You can have 1.5 questions.
Okay, 1.5 then. Well, then I'll go for an episode and a film. Episode, I'll ask. Since I've never asked you about this before. You did an episode of It's Gary Shandling Show.
Yes. This was the show before whatever these. What was the
Larry
show?
Sanders.
What was it?
Larry Sanders.
Larry Sanders.
Oh yeah.
Which, by the way, I think is one of the greatest shows in history.
I'd agree.
And is sort of forgotten and not revered like it should be. and I thought that Jeffrey Tambor and Rip Torn were absolutely brilliant actors at the top of their game.
Yes.
I
would second that.
But this was the show before, and Gary Shandling, I'll bet I don't know that much about him. It was nice, but I'll bet he never had children because
I believe you're correct.
There was a scene. I have 2 kids, which is nothing to brag about. I just happen to have them, and we were playing a soccer game. And it was, he was at a kid's soccer game, and a little kid who was just, there for the day, fell down in front of him and was crying. And he went, somebody, there's a kid down. Somebody come and look at the kid. And I thought, okay, you don't have kids because you go down there and you look, because he was just sort of, he was sort of, he's just sort of in his own world that way. He had his life set up exactly how he wanted it to be set up. And he was one of those guys, I think, seemed to me, and he was also one of the producers of the one you asked me about, News Radio.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he was delightful to me then too.
Oh.
Very nice, but I think one of those comics that was sort of always tortured.
Yeah.
I think a bit neurotic, and like most people in show business. Especially comics.
The documentary that Judd Apatow did for HBO about him, 100% recommend.
Okay.
So much more about him than you ever imagined.
Really?
Yeah. He definitely was a very funny but fascinating guy.
Yeah. I think he had, like a lot of people, he had demons.
He did, absolutely, and they're outlined in depth in there.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Because we all have them. I mean, I don't believe in lying or pretending, or I just, I don't. Yeah. I think that's also changed in show business, where people are they overshare, but people used to undershare a lot, and I never liked that.
All right, I'll wrap with the film, and I'll ask about this one because I just was able to interview Al Franken for Decider recently. But the experience of doing Stewart Saves His Family.
Stewart Saves His Family. Okay. Here's the deal. The role of Ned Ryerson in Groundhog Day was written by Harold Ramis for me. Okay. It ended up being Stephen Tobolowsky.
Yeah.
Because Harold Ramis, who I was friends with from Ghostbusters until the day he passed away, and love and cherish him, just could never make up his mind. He was, could never make up his mind. And I think he made the right choice when he picked Stephen Tobolowsky, because Stephen Tobolowsky is the ultimate goofy, nerdy guy.
Yeah.
And there would have been something unlikable about me, and there was just something goofy about him, which I think is better. But it broke my heart. It broke my heart because it was a big movie, and it would have been a break.
Yeah.
And so then Harold and I never spoke about it. I never brought it up. I was professional about it. He's the director. You hire people who are best for your movie. You don't hire your friends. I can tell you, unless you're Adam Sandler, who unfortunately hires his friends. But on the set of Stuart Saves His Family, where I was working with Al Franken, who was delightful and I asked him a billion questions about Saturday Night Live, about Lorne Michaels, about Franken and Davis. They used to have a team, and he was great. I mean, he's a regular guy. He just is a regular guy. Did not attempt to hover his hands over my breasts. Well, did not do anything like that to me. I can attest to that. But Harold came on the set, and I said, "Hey, Harold," and he goes, "Hey, Kurt," and he goes, "I hope this makes up for Groundhog Day." And I said, I lied. I said, "Oh, that never bothered me." And he went, "Well, it bothered me," like that. And he was like, very clearly it had bothered him, which I'm glad about, because he had come up to me and said, "I've written a role for you in this movie called Groundhog Day." And of course, it didn't make up for Groundhog Day because it was Stuart Saves His Family, which nobody saw.
Yeah. But
God bless him for even caring, directors and stuff, and big, but that's why I was in Stuart Saves His Family. Yeah. And that was a small role, but I thought that's a bit of an underrated movie. I thought there was a lot of good in that, a lot of good stuff in that movie. Vincent
when I talked to him, Frank had said that Paramount didn't know what to make of it. They wanted it to be a Saturday Night Live movie. They tried to market it as a Saturday Night Live movie, and he said, if I'd been smarter at the time, I would have said something about it, because films like Mr. Holland's Opus, they were actually screening it for music teachers, whereas this movie, if we had screened it for counselors,
absolutely,
it would have been huge, or at least certainly more substantially successful than it was.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. I agree. That's one that got away right there. Stuart Saves His Family.
There you go. Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, I will save your voice any further agony.
Yeah, I'm losing it, man. I'm all excited. I'm training. I don't even know how to talk anymore.
Well, thanks so much for doing this, Kurt.
It was my pleasure. My pleasure. You're. I love talking to you. I love your encyclopedic knowledge, and keep up the good work. Stay safe, everybody who's watching this. Well, most of you are probably, I'm sure there are thousands of people watching, all in big groups huddled together, because
let's hope so.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent. Well, good luck with Evil Season 2 whenever it happens, and
thank you very much.
Can't wait to see the Psych 2 myself.
Yeah, me too.
Excellent.
Me too. Well, drop me a line on Twitter or whatever and tell me what you thought.
Absolutely, we'll do.
Okay.
All right, Kurt. Thanks a lot. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.